Your dog is asleep on the floor. His legs are moving, paddling, really, like he's chasing something through tall grass. His nose twitches. He lets out a small muffled sound, like a bark that forgot to be a bark. And you think, he's dreaming. Of course he's dreaming. It's the most obvious conclusion in the world. Except, and here's where things get genuinely interesting, movement during sleep is not proof of anything. Sleepwalkers move. They open doors, descend staircases, occasionally drive cars. Nobody thinks they're having a particularly vivid inner experience. They remember nothing. Movement is just movement. So the question isn't whether your dog twitches. The question is something harder and stranger. Is there actually something it is like to be your dog, asleep right now? Is there a world behind those closed eyes or just electricity? That question turns out to have a real answer, and the answer changes what you think an inner life even is. Every mammal on record has REM sleep, that rapid eye movement phase where the brain lights up almost exactly as it does when awake. Your brain during REM is working nearly as hard as it does right now, sitting here. The body is deliberately paralyzed by a brainstem mechanism that clamps down on the motor neurons, keeping you from acting out whatever is happening upstairs. That mechanism is the thing your dog occasionally fails to maintain perfectly, which is why the legs paddle and the muffled bark escapes. Not a malfunction, just the system running slightly loose, the way any old machinery sometimes does. But the brain being on during sleep still isn't the same as dreaming. The brain runs enormous amounts of processing while you're deeply unconscious and experiencing absolutely nothing. Being active, being in REM, even letting a few motor signals slip through, none of that tells you whether your dog is having an experience at all. To answer that, you need to get inside the content. You need to find out not that the brain is running, but what it is actually replaying. In the 1960s, a French neuroscientist named Michel Jouvet, working in Lyon, decided to look for exactly that. He knew that the REM paralysis, that brainstem clamp on the motor neurons, was the only thing standing between a sleeping animal and its own behavior. So he did something elegant and a little unsettling. He lesioned the specific brainstem region responsible for that motor suppression during REM sleep, and then he watched what happened when the cats fell asleep. Their brains showed every marker of REM, the characteristic wave patterns, the eye movements, the whole signature. They were unambiguously asleep, and yet they stood up, they stalked, they crouched low and fixed their gaze on something invisible, then pounced, performing, in precise behavioral detail, a complete hunting sequence, on nothing, on empty air, on prey that existed only inside the sleeping brain. Jouvet had removed the lock on the door between the dreaming mind and the body, and what walked out was a hunter. Now you're getting somewhere. Not just movement, organized, purposeful, species-specific behavior generated by a sleeping brain. But even this is still inference from the outside. You're watching the output, the downstream signal. What you really want is to see inside. In 2001 at MIT, a neuroscientist named Matthew Wilson published something that stopped the field. Wilson had been recording from cells in the hippocampus of rats, the region central to spatial memory, while they ran a maze. Hippocampal place cells fire in specific sequences as an animal moves through space. Cell A fires here, cell B fires at the corner, cell C fires at the end of the corridor. The sequence is the map. Wilson carefully recorded those sequences while the rats were awake and running. Then he kept recording while the rats slept. During REM sleep, the same cells fired in the same order at a compressed but perfectly recognizable tempo. The neural replay was so precise that Wilson could identify from the firing pattern alone where in the maze the rat was located at any given moment of its dream. Not simply the rat is dreaming about the maze. He could say, right now, this rat is dreaming of the left turn. Right now, it is at the end of the corridor. The rat had a specific place, a specific moment, something it was like to be that rat in that dream, in a maze that wasn't there. That is not a twitch. That is a world dreaming. Here's what the Wilson finding quietly revealed about what dreaming actually is. The hippocampal replay during REM is almost certainly a memory consolidation process, The brain rehearsing the day's experience, strengthening the neural pathways that matter, filing what needs to be kept and letting the rest go. Dreaming, it turns out, isn't a side effect of having a large, complicated brain. It's a maintenance function. It's the brain doing its nightly filing, and it does this whether you find it poetic or not. Now here is the part that should make you sit up a little. If dreaming is a biological necessity rather than a cognitive luxury, if it's something brains do because they have to, because the ones that didn't fell behind, then you'd expect to find it far outside the mammals. You'd expect evolution to have arrived at this solution repeatedly on completely separate branches of the tree of life, because it works, because rehearsal beats forgetting every single time. Around the year 2000, Daniel Margoliash at the University of Chicago was studying zebra finches, small, somewhat unremarkable-looking birds with an extraordinary talent for vocal learning. He found that neurons in the vocal control region of the finch brain fire in a specific pattern when the bird sings. You already know where this is going. During sleep, those same neurons fire again, in the same sequence, producing the ghost of the song with no sound, rehearsing the melody in complete silence, in the dark, alone. The young finch, still learning its song, is getting better overnight at something it hasn't performed since yesterday. It is practicing in its sleep, and it has no idea you find that remarkable. Then comes the one that should quietly rearrange everything you thought you knew about inner lives. In 2021, researchers at the Brain Institute of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil documented octopuses cycling through rapid color and texture changes during what appears to be an active sleep phase, their skin flickering, shifting, pulsing through patterns that match the displays they produce while hunting, while alarmed, while communicating. The same vocabulary of color, running on a sleeping body, driven by a sleeping brain. Octopuses share your last common ancestor from roughly 600 million years ago, at a fork in the tree of life so ancient that you and an octopus have almost nothing in common except the bare fact of being alive. And yet there they are, alone in the dark at the bottom of a tank, running what looks for all the world like the same nightly program. If the hidden lives of animals keep surprising you like this, you're exactly where you belong. Every night, in burrows and tanks and on living room floors, something is happening in brains that have nothing to do with yours. Brains that have been running this program since long before the first human ever closed their eyes. Your dog on the floor is not just twitching. He is somewhere specific, in a moment that is entirely his own, in a world you will never visit. That world did not begin with him. It did not begin with anything like you. It began in the deep time of biology, patient and exact, and it has been running every single night since, whether anyone was watching or not.